Good day, our viewers and listeners. This is Dr. Kaveh Elahian coming to you guys with another fantastic interview with Dr. Sarah Outlaw. Uh, this is Wellness Influencers bringing you another informative interview. This lady is quite involved in nutrition. She has a master's degree in clinical nutrition. So she knows basically nutrition in and out. Ms. Outlaw, thank you for joining us. Give us an introduction and we'll dive right into it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. All right. So as you mentioned, I'm Sarah Outlaw and I own Natural Health Improvement Centers of South Jersey and Des Moines. I have two different clinics in two different states, 1,000 miles apart. And we are helping people to get their health back without the use of unnecessary drugs or surgery. So I started my wellness journey, oh my gosh, probably almost 15, 16 years ago when my youngest had some health issues, some very minor health issues. And I realized that some of the things I was using in my home was causing a problem. So I started my education that way. I got an herbal education, 2 years of herbal education. I also got my master's degree at New York Chiropractic College in applied clinical nutrition. And I have 2 years of clinical training at Ewell Nutritional Systems in Clearwater, Florida for nutrition response testing specifically, which is the modality that I mainly use. I'm a functional nutritionist too, but I use kind of both blood work and the applied kinesiology in my practice, kind of get everything well-rounded and holistic. So we have been in our practice for, as I said, close to 6 years now, and really doing a good job of getting people better. And people come to us as kind of their last resort. They come to us as the caboose on the train. They've been everywhere else. Where do we go next? The doctors haven't been able to find out what's going on with them. And what they never really realize is what they have going on is a nutritional issue, deficiencies and imbalances. And when they get their nutrition fixed and get the immune system challenges taken care of, the food sensitivities, the metal and the chemical sensitivities, the mold sensitivities, all of these underlying root cause issues, when we fix those, then they realize that they have real health finally.
So clinical nutrition. Let's talk about nutrition. What are real foods? What do you consider proper nutrition? And basically all related information, because it's a huge information jungle out there, which you don't really know who to believe, what to believe, and when to believe them.
Right. So real food, how I would define it, is food that has not been altered by man, basically. So it's not processed. So it will be your apples, your oranges, your meats, your whole healthy fats, those types of things, proteins. But then we have the issue of, well, then man does tamper with some things. They do genetic modification. They use pesticides, herbicides. So then we have to educate our patients on, well, what is real food? And then what is real food modified, right? So it's a whole educational process. But basically, you are pretty safe if you're going to go towards the meat, the proteins, or meats, vegetables, and healthy fats, and some fruits in moderation. So that's my definition. That's what my patients eat. We use more paleo type of eating. We don't use a lot of dairy because of how messed up dairy is these days, but we really focus on whole, healthy food.
Now, when it comes to organic as opposed to not organic, the challenge there is to really look through and find true organic, because, labeling is funny these days, that they can label something organic and it remotely not even seen organic, condition.
Right.
How do you find, where do you look for to find organic food? How do you read the labels smarter?
Yeah, it really depends on where you live. So thankfully, where I live in New Jersey, and I have access, and even Iowa we do too, we have access to local farmers markets, and we have access to local farmers that grow organically. And even if they're not certified organic, we have a relationship with the farmers. We can ask them, how do you grow your food? Some of them use pheromone patches on their fruit trees. It gets the pests away. Some of them use an integrative approach to pesticide management, where they're not using pesticides. They're using herbal-based ways to kill the bugs, or just rotating the crops properly. Having the relationship with the farmer is your number one. If you can't, then looking at your grocery store for the ones that do say certified organic, because at least there is some regulation, and it took them at least 3 years to get that certification, and they have to re-up for the certification. The issue with a lot of the grocery stores, thinking of like the major chains like Whole Foods now, which I like Whole Foods, but there is more conventional, which means not organic produce there than there is organic. And they mix it all together. So you have a bin of tomatoes that say organic and a bin that doesn't. If you're not paying attention, you might choose the wrong one thinking, oh, it's Whole Foods, it's organic. So really educating yourself and patients on what is the difference. If it doesn't say it on the label, it's probably not going to be it, right? And they're going to mix it all together because, oh, this one's cheaper, but oh, it's not actually organic. So you have to shop very smartly.
Yes, definitely, especially these days.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to nutritional deficiencies, obviously it is a platform where most of our chronic diseases start too.
Right.
What are some of the chronic diseases that you see in your practice that has nutritional roots?
Type 2 diabetes, we see thyroid issues, adrenal, we see neurological issues that are, from lack of healthy fats. We are seeing obesity, all sorts of metabolic issues, a lot of digestive issues. The body is so saturated with carbohydrates and unhealthy processed foods that the digestive system is kind of broken. Doesn't know how to work anymore. So we see a lot of issues. We see almost everything you can imagine come through our office, and everything has a nutritional component. I think they said something like 95 to 98% of all diseases now have a environmental or nutrition component. So that's what we're seeing come through our office. Yeah.
It's astonishing that we don't recognize everything we put in our body could be a cause of nourishment or disease in our body.
Exactly. What do they say? Everything you eat is either feeding your body or killing your body. That's,
and truly
slow form of poison. The bad foods are slow forms of poison. You're just basically poisoning yourself.
My son had a school project in which I taught him to maybe think about the content of sugar into Coke, Pepsi, and 4 fruit juices. I was surprised to understand some of the fruit juices in the stores being sold have more sugar content per serving than the Pepsi did.
Right. And what are our kids? Yeah. And what are our kids eating? They're drinking those fruit juices. They're drinking the flavored milks at school. They're eating the Go-Gurts and eating the Lunchables. Like, we don't eat real food anymore. And our children are the ones who are suffering. I mean, the hospitals are full of kids who are sick. I have a nurse who comes to me as a patient, and she works in the children's ward. And she said the amount of children with type 1 diabetes has gone up so incredibly much that she can't believe it. She can't believe the sicknesses that she is dealing with in her practice, and the cancer and the metabolic disease and the obesity. There was one of my friends in Michigan said the entire elementary school was shut down today because over half of the teachers were sick and almost all of the students.
Wow.
But she does nutrition and things like I do. So her family is like, oh, we're just having a fun day off now because everybody's sick and we're great. That's the thing with us. Like, I'm around sick people all day long, but I don't get sick anymore. I used to be really sick, but I built my immune system up with healthy food and healthy whole food supplements. So I don't get those things that everybody else gets.
Now, Ms. Outlaw, let us know about clinical testing that you do, specifically when it comes to nutrition. How it's done, what are the parameters that you look for, and where would one get this, and what are they useful for?
Okay, so other than people bringing in their blood work and their functional tests, we do something in our office called nutrition response testing. So what nutrition response testing is a non-invasive way of testing the body for different things that is stressing the body out. So a stressor would be something like a food sensitivity, an immune system challenge, a metal, a chemical, mold, scars, those types of things. We need to find out what's going on, the root cause of what you have going on in your body, not just what's causing the symptom. So while I care about someone's symptoms because that's what brings them to me, it's what's underneath that symptom that I'm looking at. So we do, if you're familiar with applied kinesiology at all, muscle testing. It's a form of muscle testing. It was kind of improved upon by Dr. Freddie Ulan of Ulan Nutritional Systems in Florida. And he founded it because he was very ill and he was going to be dying at age 50 from congestive heart failure and multiple organ issues. So he went all over the world looking for different modalities to heal himself. So he founded nutrition response testing, and now he teaches it. So we are all practitioners of that specific modality. And what we do is basically use the autonomic nervous system, which is the system of the body that runs the body, to find out what's going on inside the body, using the body's innate intelligence through muscle testing. So, for example, standing here, I'm not under any stress. So if you come over to me and you push on my arm, I can resist you. Just like if I push on your arm, you can resist me. But if there's something going on with an organ like my heart, for example, and you come over to me and you push on my heart and my arm at the same time, my arm will actually collapse because all of the energy, blood flow, and circulation is going to leave that expendable extremity to protect the core organ as long as possible. Like if someone touches a hot stove, they don't have to sit there with their hand burning, right? You automatically remove your hand. So that's the body's way of protecting itself. So if you think of somebody who has hypothermia, when they come out of the cold water, fingers and toes and arms and legs are numb because all of the energy, blood flow, and circulation is going to leave what you can live without to protect what you can't for as long as possible. So basically that's how muscle testing works. It puts slight pressure on an organ. If the organ has any stress at all going on in it, that arm is going to say, oh, I got to protect that organ, and the blood flow is going to rush. So it's a split second, moment in time way of finding out what's going on with someone's system. It's super, super accurate. We use different test kits with different substances in it that we test. Everything we do is biochemistry and physics based. And then we use mostly standard process and MediHerb supplements and herbs to be able to make the corrections to the autonomic nervous system, which runs on nutrition, believe it or not. And we nourish the body instead of giving a medication that will force the body to make a change. So backtracking a little bit, I always like to explain to my patients, if you have a headache, you take an Advil, your headache goes away. Or does it? It's actually still there, right? You just covered up the symptom. That medication covered up that symptom, but then 4 hours later, that headache comes back. You might have to take another dose. With nutrition, it actually nourishes the autonomic nervous system, which runs on nutrition. We have the two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, that work together. When that system is completely nourished, we can get underneath the symptoms and actually encourage the body to heal itself instead of forcing it to make a change with the medication. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing with nutrition response testing, is getting to the root cause of symptoms, finding out what's going on in your nervous system, and giving your body the nutrition it needs to actually self-heal.
It's amazing that you described it so well. I mean, people don't recognize that. Even as chiropractor, I've been in practice for 21 years. I mean, people come and I see them for, different stuff. And for example, some of the headaches, you ask them, yes, I can see some pressure on a specific part of the muscle or the nerve, but are you eating the proper food? Because your nervous system needs to get all the food, the nutrition, the fatty acids, everything that it needs to regulate itself.
Right.
Now, let's pick a condition, because I just want to go through, which just basically a dry run of a specific condition. Let's say thyroid.
Okay.
I come to you and I say, my thyroid is malfunctioning. I think it's hypo. How do you test it and where do you go from there?
Yeah, so we look at everybody as a whole person. So what we would do is we would actually do a muscle testing scan of the entire body, because sometimes even if the thyroid is where the malfunction is, it's something else. It's pituitary, it's hypothalamus, it's something higher in the endocrine system. It might not be the thyroid as the priority. So what the body does, when we do the muscle testing, it chooses the priority, and we can find out the one area that is the issue. So say, for example, for your question that the thyroid does come up as the body's priority, what would we do? Well, we would first find out why it's the priority. What's going on? Does this person have an underlying food sensitivity? Wheat, corn, white sugar, dairy, those are the four main culprits, right? And then what about the immune system? We have found that every single food sensitivity that's not an anaphylactic type allergy is actually pushed by an underlying immune system issue that's causing the body to have an inflammatory response to a certain food, usually the wheat, corn, white sugar, and the dairy. So if we can find that underlying immune system issue, thyroid is usually viruses. Viruses love the thyroid. Think of a Hashimoto type of situation. We find that sometimes a metal, mercury also loves the thyroid to settle in there. We have people with mercury amalgam fillings.
Yeah.
You know, those fillings kind of leach into the body, and the thyroid is the next thing down. That soft tissue, it kind of gets in there. So we see lots of mercury issues, those types of things. So then we have to figure out, okay, so this person, say they have a wheat, corn, white sugar, and dairy sensitivity. They have a virus going on in their thyroid. They have mercury going on. What do? We have to give them the right nutrition to make the corrections. So we use whole food nutrition. So we might use some enzymes to help the body with the food sensitivities. We might use some antiviral type of herbs to help with the immune system. Some things to help with the metals. We want to strengthen the parotid glands because the parotid glands have a lot to do with handling toxins. So if we give someone strong parotid glands, we know that they can get rid of that metal pretty easily on their own, and we handle that. Then we have to support the thyroid, right? And they might be on medication, they might not. We don't know. We have people who come in with and without. It just depends. So we'll give them a very specific thyroid support to actually strengthen the thyroid. We do that later on the program because initially, the stressors that we're talking about, it's like someone's hitting on the head with a hammer 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The body can't heal itself if it's stressed out. So we have to relieve the stress. We take the food sensitivities out. We take the metals. We take the immune system challenges out. Basically like putting the fire out instead of rebuilding first. So I always tell my patients when they say, oh, can I have the thyroid support right now? I need my thyroid support. You got to support my thyroid. I say, listen, if your house was burning down, would you have your contractor and your furniture company come in and rebuild and put your furniture in with the house burning down? And they say, no. I'm like, right, you wouldn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the fire out in your thyroid first, and then we're going to rebuild it. So give us a couple of weeks to get those stressors out, and then we'll start to rebuild the organ. And that's something that is understood, and then we get better compliance that way.
It's amazing that you brought that point up because that's what I was going to ask you next, because you and I have patients who come and they say, you know what, I've been taking thyroid supplement or adrenal support and nothing is working.
Right.
And I always tell them, it's not the supplement you need. You need to put out the fire that's causing this lack of hormone or lack of function in your organ.
Right.
So leaky gut, we have heard a lot about it.
Yes.
Now we know it's considered our first brain.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the thoughts you have on when it comes to gut health?
Wow, we see a lot of microorganism imbalances in the gut. So we have had lots of extreme cases of Crohn's disease, colitis, gastritis, IBS, diverticulitis, you name it, we've seen it. And the root cause is really the body. A lot of times they're on multiple rounds of antibiotics in their lifetime. So they've killed all the good soldiers as well as the bad, and they're not rebuilding. So what they'll do sometimes is they'll come in and I'll see their list of supplements that they take, and they take probiotics, but they're not getting better. I'm like, well, okay, so you're taking probiotics and your gut is still a mess. You're leaking all over the place basically, right? There's no colonization happening of those probiotics. There's nothing for them to stick on because they've wiped out everything. So what we do is we go backwards and we do what we call a gut restoration program, where we look at removing any offending foods, re-inoculating with prebiotics and probiotics, and then, basically reintroducing foods later on. So we end up doing the 4 R's of restoration. I said 3, but it ends up being 4. Remove, repair, re-inoculate, and reintroduce is what we do. And really getting into gut health, but going back to the beginning, not just throwing probiotics at them, but really cleaning it out. We see parasites a lot. Now, in my practice, I'm not an MD. I'm not allowed to diagnose. In the state of New Jersey and Iowa, there's no diagnosis happening. I can tell someone they have an immune system challenge, but I can't diagnose it. But we do test for parasites, viruses, funguses, and bacterias, but the way we test for it, we don't know what specifically that they are, okay? So we see a lot of parasitic issues in everybody. We see animals too in our office. So everyone from animals to babies to adults, and it's messing up their gut. So I always tell my patients, anytime you have any type of a gut situation going on, come in, because there might be something with some type of microorganism, like a parasitic issue, that's imbalanced right now. I could run an entire parasite practice at this point. I feel like there are so many different parasite issues. But when they go get tested at their doctor, what happens?
Nothing
There's
shows
nothing
up.
there. Nothing shows up. So, and then they say, well, how come there's no parasites when I get tested? Well, since this is a major issue, I always have to explain. And this is the analogy I always use. Pretend you have a bowl of Skittles, all different colors, and you separate out all the green ones and you put them in the lower corner. Then you take a sample of the Skittles and you take them out and you say, oh, there's no green ones. There's no green Skittles. Oh, well, guess what? There are green Skittles. They were just hiding in the corner altogether. Well, that can be the same thing with parasites. You might have not gotten to the part of the intestinal tract, which is miles long, where they happen to be, right? They could be in the stomach. They could be anywhere. And if you have leaky gut, they could have leaked out into the intracellular walls. We don't know. So the testing is not always comprehensive. So just because it doesn't show it doesn't mean it's not there. And if they're symptomatic, it should be handled anyway. But in our office, we don't believe in hit or miss nutrition. We don't treat symptoms. We want to know it's there, so we test for it. And when we see it in our test, then we handle it. If that makes sense.
So it's all or nothing, basically.
Yeah.
It's there or not there. So if
Right.
it's there, then you look for the cause of it.
Yeah. We're going to find it. If they're having there's a very specific list of symptoms. If they're having these specific lists of symptoms, we are testing until we find what we're looking for, not just saying, oh, it didn't show it here, so we're done. So we're really looking very thoroughly.
Now, when it comes to children, I have noticed that there is almost a pandemic of gut issues, which is causing a whole range of behavioral problems,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
early onsets of a whole lot of autoimmune diseases. Now, with the kids, do you do the same thing, or is there specific testing that you do with the kids?
We do. And I'm going to say something that's not popular at all right now. Kids' health, when it comes to their nutrition, is 100% the parent's responsibility. I have over 6,000 patients currently, and over half my practice is children. And I always tell the parents, and I approach this very delicately. If a parent says, my child is picky and they won't eat anything and they're having health issues, I say, listen, you are responsible for the food that comes into your home. When you're not at your home, then obviously there might be things that are eaten at school or other places. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about the food that's in your home that they're getting the most of. You are responsible for where you shop, what you shop for, what you feed them, what you cook, what they're eating. I don't want to hear that the kid is picky. We're all picky in our own way. You keep introducing the foods until they understand that's all there is. If they have other options, if you're cooking a meal for yourself and then cooking macaroni and cheese for your child, they're not going to get the nutrition that they need, right? So we have a very, I'm a mom, I have 5 kids. So, seeing our children and how they behave and how they do things within the home is our responsibility. So we test them exactly the same. We can test babies with the testing that we do. We just use mom as our testing person. They hold them and we help with the testing. And we do lots of fertility programs, or even testing babies when they're not even born because we're testing mom. But our goal is to ultimately get to moms and kids, because the kids are the future generation. And that's who we are really concerned about. So that's why we really focus on children in our practice and getting them well, and also focusing in on their nutrition. I always give the old Dr. Sears tip, which he always said, if you put a muffin tin out and put all these different foods in the muffin tin, vegetables, meats, dips, fruits, things that they would maybe be interested in, maybe not, and then put it in the middle of the table. This doesn't work if you have cats. I've tried it. But if you don't have cats, you can put it in the middle of the table and just see what your toddlers and your elementary school children gravitate towards. And then give them more things that are like that. And then they'll be encouraged to try new things because mom's not telling them to, right? If I'm not saying, eat this, they might go and say, oh, what's this? And they might try it. So I've actually expanded my kids' palates extremely by doing that with them when they were little, and now they're older now, so they're less picky than I think that some other kids are.
Amazing. Now, this time of year, everybody gets all hyped up about all the viruses and the colds and now we have this coronavirus that has made everybody just hypersensitive. For immune deficiencies or immune boosting, what are some of the suggestions that you would have? Obviously not case specific, generally speaking.
Yeah, so I know that everybody uses different supplement brands in their practices and uses different things. I know we use a lot of elderberry syrup. We actually provide it to our patients. I make it, and in my Iowa office, my other practitioner makes it. And we offer elderberry making kits so you can make it at your home. We have found that giving kids, especially regular doses of elderberry syrup before school, really protects them against the viruses. And there's so many studies on elderberry. PubMed has tons of them on how it can stop a virus and stops viruses from replicating. We use some very specific herbs that include like St. John's wort, which is a major antiviral in its own right. So, and then we use another product called Viranon from Mediherb, which has it in it. So it's kind of a combination of different things. And then whole food. So with the standard process supplements we use a combination of whole food, vitamin A, vitamin C, and echinacea, which is it's called Cataplex AC, but it combines those three. And we know that even for measles, right, vitamin A is important. And you don't have to worry about toxicity if it's from a food because it's not synthetic. Whole food vitamin C, which is not ascorbic acid, because we want the whole complex vitamin C to really nourish the entire system. And then echinacea, which is incredible, which we use a lot of in our practice because it just really helps with antiviral issues. So we have a kind of a whole arsenal. We also use homeopathic remedies for viruses, especially for kids because they're liquid. They're easy to take. We can get them down really easily. And then bunch of herbal remedies as well. So we kind of have this whole arsenal. We sell a winter wellness kit with a bunch of supplements in it. And then we tell people how to eat really healthily during this flu season, which I lovingly call sugar season, right? Because from Halloween to Easter, I feel like it's just sugar, sugar, sugar.
That's
and
right.
we're just eating it. I'm not worried about the viruses. I mean, flu is more prominent than the coronavirus and kills more people than, well, side effects from the flu. Co-infections from the flu kill people, but I'm not worried about it. I have these people who are saying, oh, maybe you shouldn't get on an airplane. I fly all the time. I fly almost every other week. I'm not worried about it. I know that if I keep my immune system strong with whole food supplementation, herbal remedies, whatever I have to do, and the kitchen sink, throw everything at it, right? my immune system is going to be strong, and I don't worry about my kids either. So I think it's a non-issue.
It's amazing that you mentioned about elderberry. This year, first time ever, I had the opportunity to eat it fresh.
Oh, wow.
Which is mind-boggling how delicious this berry was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so taken by this berry that I did a little research on it. And the nutritional facts for this berry is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks blueberries are good.
Right.
But wow, elderberries?
Yeah, elderberries.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, there's another berry too that sometimes we'll mix the elderberry with, and that's Aronia berry. It's Aronia, and that has an even higher antioxidant profile nutritionally than elderberries and immune properties as well. So where I used to live in New Jersey, I moved since, but we had a big Aronia berry bush in our front yard. So that's another one to keep your eye out because that's going to gain popularity here soon.
I will do. I will definitely do. Now, Ms. Outlaw, for our viewers, give us some pointers when it comes to eating, balanced nutrition, exercises, toxicities, especially when it comes from external toxicities rather than internal toxicities. What are the things that we should basically look for, generally speaking?
As far as self-care, like how do we take care of ourselves? Yeah. So for toxicity, since that one popped into my head first when you said it, like detox baths. I like to, have, especially with kids and adults, taking a detox bath after being exposed, even just once a week, where you do maybe 2 cups of baking soda and 2 cups of Epsom salts in a hot bath for at least 20 to 40 minutes. Just kind of pulling out those toxins. It's really, really helpful. I also like to use, I use essential oils in my home to kind of detoxify the home, not using any chemical personal care products or chemical cleaning products, and cleaning with things like vinegar. I use a lot of tea tree oil and lemon essential oil to clean with and kind of purify the air. And then as far as food, just eating, lots of vegetables. I believe in eating a lot of vegetables, getting all those vitamins and nutrition, especially the green leafy vegetables. Proteins, try to find the cleanest meat sources as possible, grass-fed, organic. I do eat meat. I'm not a vegetarian nutritionist. I do feel like the animal protein plays a part. Fish, I like salmon, the wild caught, and then small amounts of fruit. I don't do a whole lot of fruit. I know that I personally had Lyme disease a few years ago, and I had Lyme disease, Hashimoto's, hypothyroid, adrenal fatigue, and Epstein-Barr. Fun times.
Wow.
Yeah. And I couldn't eat any sugar at all, not even fruit, for 2 years, because any little bit of fruit sugar even would activate all the bugs, and my system would go crazy. So until that was handled, I couldn't even eat fruit, because even that little bit of sugar would bother me. So my patients have learned that when they're sick and have things going on, they minimize fruit intake, and then they can put it back in later. So now I can eat fruit, no problem. So I always focus in on vegetables, proteins, healthy fats. I eat more fats now than I ever have, and I'm in the best shape I've ever been at 41. Avocado oil, coconut oil, getting the healthy fats in, feeding the brain. I think we're so afraid of fats, and everything is low fat, non-fat, and people are afraid to add it in. But those low fat foods are all high sugar, and the sugar is where the problem is. They're coming out with new studies now proving that eating healthy fats is not detrimental to your heart. It's not detrimental to your arteries, and it's not going to cause you to have a stroke, right? It's the sugars and the high carbs. So focusing in on those healthy foods. And then what else did you ask me?
Actually, just to point out a couple more things about the healthy fats. Our nervous system, our brain, are made out of fatty cell, basically blocks, right, which join together to constitute the nerve cell and the brain, right, and so on. Now, for carno versus keto diet, which one are you more inclined to refer to or prescribe?
I am not a one-size-fits-all diet kind of person. So we really look at the person individually and see what works best. So some people, carnivore diet works really well. I've not done that specifically. I've done keto before. I've done paleo. I personally do better with a mixture of like keto paleo, where I eat the healthy fats do really well for me. So for me, eating just only meat, I don't think that my body would handle that well. And I also know I cannot be a strict vegetarian, because I was in my early 20s and I was a vegetarian and I thought I was going to die because I'm more, if you take any type of a metabolic typing test, I come up as a protein type. So my body does really well in proteins and really well in fats. So some of my patients are keto. Some of them are doing a carnivore diet. Some of them are paleo. Some of them lean towards more of a pescatarian type of, they eat fish, but they don't eat other meats. So it's really individualized, which is why I think I love what I specifically do so much, is because we can individualize everything, and every person has different dietary needs. So definitely not one size fits all.
That's amazing, because not all of us have the same DNA, and not all of us have the same metabolic rate. So, I mean, our fingerprint's different. Why wouldn't our requirements be?
Exactly.
Now, for our viewers and our listeners, Ms. Outlaw, where can they find you? Give us your website, you have a podcast too, don't you?
I usually do just Facebook Lives. I just do it.
Perfect.
Random.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So give us all the addresses that if our viewers need to get a hold of you.
Okay. So if you are near me in either New Jersey or Iowa, you can visit us online at NHICSouthJersey.com or NHICDesMoines.com. Those are our websites. You can always send us an email at info@NHICSouthJersey.com or info@NHICDesMoines.com. That's to link up to our offices. And if you aren't near me in either of my practices or my associate practitioners, and you're looking for someone who specifically does what I do, there is a clinician finder that you can go to, and that is unsinc.info. So if you go to that website, you can find someone. There's a bunch of us around the country, so you can find us with the same training and then are able to find us there. You can also find us on Facebook, which is where I am a lot. So you can do facebook.com/NHIC South Jersey or /NHIC Des Moines, and you can find us on Instagram at those same handles as well.
Sarah Outlaw, you are great. Thank you so very much for devoting us some of your time. I am definitely honored that you took the time, and I hopefully can bring you back sometime in a perfect time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you so very much for our viewers for tuning in to this interview of Wellness Influencers podcast. If you haven't done so, please subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating so we can get this mission going. And hopefully we will see you all next time. Take care. Have a great day.